Hello, and welcome back to the podcast that must not be named. I'm Luke.
I'm Melissa.
And we are going to start Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Book 2. This book is 341 pages, and that is 8.32% of the entire series.
I noticed this book was released on your birthday in 1999, so this book was born on your 10th birthday.
On my 10th birthday.
You're so young.
I know. I was 2 years younger than Harry when this book comes out.
Whereas Harry is actually my age.
I know.
Like in his chronological time.
Yeah.
Well, actually, he's a year younger than me, because I'm old.
Yeah, he was born in 1980, right?
Yes. The dedication of the book reads, "For Sean P.F. Harris, getaway driver, and foul-weathered friend."
The cover description reads, "The Dursleys were so mean and hideous that summer, all Harry Potter wanted was to get back to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. But just as he's packing his bags, Harry receives a warning from a strange, impish creature named Dobby, who says that if Harry Potter returns to Hogwarts, disaster will strike. And strike it does, for in Harry's second year at Hogwarts, fresh torments and horrors arise, including an outrageously stuck-up new professor, Gilderoy Lockhart, a spirit named Moaning Myrtle, who haunts the girls' bathroom, and the unwanted attentions of Ron Weasley's younger sister, Ginny. But each of these seem minor annoyances when the real trouble begins, and someone, or something, starts turning Hogwarts students to stone. Could it be Draco Malfoy, a more poisonous rival than ever? Could it possibly be Hagrid, whose mysterious past is finally told? Or could it be the one everyone at Hogwarts most suspects, Harry Potter himself?"
Now let's start with Chapter 1, The Worst Birthday. This chapter was 12 pages, which is 3.52% of the book. Luke, take us away.
Our book starts out with Harry and Vernon arguing over the noise Hedwig has been making. She has not been allowed to fly since they returned to Privet Drive. This is then followed by Harry being reprimanded for asking Dudley to show some manners, and not for mentioning magic as the Dursleys assumed. Throughout the day, Harry reminisces about his many exciting adventures, classes, and new friends from his first year at Hogwarts. As per usual, and to no one's surprise, the Dursleys have paid no attention to the fact that today was our hero's birthday. This is especially not surprising to Harry, as Vernon has a very important dinner party planned for that night, which Harry has very clearly been uninvited to. The ignoring of Harry's birthday by the Dursleys was one thing, but by Ron, Hermione, and Hagrid, this irks Harry as he sings happy birthday wishes to himself on the garden's bench. But Harry is startled as he realizes the hedge he had been staring into began staring back. But before being able to investigate the hedge eyes, Dudley strides over and taunts Harry for having no friends to write him on his birthday. Harry loses his restraint and fake hexes Dudley, and pays dearly for it with excessive chores and a near miss from a frying pan. After a quaint dinner while staring at the huge pudding Petunia had made for the dinner party that night, Harry is ushered upstairs and threatened, only to find that he is not the only one in his room.
Similar to Book 1, we will follow up our executive summary with some of our character introductions and locations and magicabulary. However, in this particular chapter, we only get 2 character introductions. Some rich builder named Mr. Mason and his wife named Mrs. Mason. There are no locations that are new. There is no magicabulary that is new. One new feature for our second book is that we're going to take a few minutes each time and talk about the beginning of chapter illustration. This chapter's illustration is our hero Harry sitting on a bench, staring into space while being stared at by eyes on a hedge.
Yeah, that's pretty funny looking. There's a big cloud behind him. He's kind of... He looks pretty surprised that there are eyes staring back at him from the hedge.
And I think it's very interesting. Those are very large eyes.
Yeah, they are. They're pretty far set apart, too.
They are. I know typically when I read, I don't always notice the illustration. So I know the first time I read it, I did not pay attention
I think
to the fact that there were eyes in there. But looking back, I'm like, ooh, that's... And we don't find anything else other than there were eyes.
Right, yeah. I definitely kind of skim past most of the illustrations as well. So I think focusing on them each chapter will be interesting, I think, for us and hopefully the listeners as well.
And I assume he's in the Dursleys' garden, which, is their backyard. But it sure looks like he's at a park.
Well, the Dursleys live in a nice area, I guess. They have
probably
maybe a pretty decent yard. So for this chapter, I only had a couple notes. One of my favorite lines, it didn't quite be my favorite line, but is, "Do I look stupid?" snarled Uncle Vernon, a bit of fried egg dangling from his bushy mustache. Yeah, you sound like you look pretty stupid.
Well, we definitely think you look stupid.
Right.
You sound stupid.
If the shoe fits.
Yeah, if the mustache fits.
Right.
Sorry, Vernon. No, I'm not sorry. I don't like you. I remember. It's been a while since I've gotten to yell at Dursleys. I don't like you. You do look stupid.
Yeah, I think you'll get right back into form here pretty quick.
Oh, the Dursleys.
Let me get through mine so you can get a little bit warmed up.
All right. I got some good ones.
Harry seems to be taking this forgetfulness by his friends rather hard. It sounds pretty reasonable to me that he feels that way. What do you think? I think he feels kind of ditched.
Well, I agree that he feels ditched, and part of me completely understands, and part of me also feels like, well, really, like you've never had any friends,
right? But now
ever.
He's got really good friends, and now they can't even write to him.
So I guess my thinking is,
when they said that they would, and they promised that he could come and visit.
Also true.
I'm just saying. Okay,
and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, like, the other side of it is, but he's good at being alone. He should be fine. And I mean, and really, you've got this 12-year-old kid. We're talking middle school, where friends are hard anyway in middle school, and he's never had friends before, so he doesn't always have the best background knowledge on how to friend. And so maybe, he's worried, like, oh, I don't know, what did I do? What did I make them mad? Did I forget to do something? Which it seems like he must have, or there was something going on, or they weren't that good of friends. But, I go back to the Halloween chapter of book 1, and you can't take down a 12-foot mountain troll without being friends. So I feel like he's worrying for no reason, except that they're not talking to him.
Well, I
don't know.
I'll go back to early in book 1 when, because we were just saying he didn't have any friends. He was completely isolated.
Right.
Like his entire life. For 11 years of his life, he was completely isolated from anybody. And now he spent an entire year with some of the best friends he could have ever even imagined. More than anybody can imagine, really. They were great. And now it's not there. And it's hard not to miss that once you know what it is.
Oh, right. And I'm not saying
like
you're wrong.
That floodgate's opened. And now he kind of feels a little bit betrayed. A little bit that... Like, where'd it go? Like, what's different now? Just because I'm not right next to you, we're not friends? Like, what's
if you've never had chocolate before and all of a sudden you had chocolate for a really long time, but then, like, magically it disappeared again and you couldn't have chocolate anymore. You'd miss the chocolate.
Right.
Okay, I'll get you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty big hole that he had before that he didn't know about.
Yeah.
And then it was filled with really good friends,
right.
And now it seems like it's deeper.
And it's not like he's been going to Hogwarts for years and have always had this summer slump. I guess I'm sort of looking at it as the perspective of, like... As a teacher, I always get a summer break. Not that it's not filled with a million other things getting ready for the next school year. But so you always have sort of that reset period where I don't talk to my teacher friends and I don't see my kids from school and I don't have any of that. And my children don't play with their school friends in the summer. They, either play with the kids, with, their siblings or they, friends around the neighborhood or whatever. So I guess I don't think of it as that big of a deal.
Yeah, but you also didn't grow up.
But I also know that it's coming back. He doesn't know that yet, right? Because this is still. And
he even said in there, was it even real? Like he's almost like second guessing it because it's like
because it was so different than where he is right now.
Yeah, I mean it was literally like a magical world.
Yes, literally. All right.
But I just thought it was...
Yes, it's reasonable. I just...
But also,
have a hard time.
give it some time.
Yeah,
you'll be all right.
But that's also part of being 12 and not, 20 and 25.
Emotions are hard to deal with.
Well, and you haven't lived that long.
Right.
Like, you don't know that it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
There's no life experience to prove that if you wait, it'll come back around and
You'll
it's
be
all right.
fine. Just hang out.
All right.
Another great line in this is, "You've forgotten the magic word." And that whole fight that got started. I thought that was
please.
Yeah, I thought that was a clever bit of word usage to remind us just how ridiculous the Dursleys are. Even not like the child abuse stuff, just how ridiculous they are.
Yeah.
Like, they go flying off the handle. I think Dudley falls off his chair. It's just like, how can this affect you that much? Like, what happened to these people back whenever that they just can't even hear anything like
remotely
that? Like, come
well,
on.
It's the flying motorcycle dream.
I know, yeah.
I mean, it's those kinds of things. Like, yes, I had a dream about a flying motorcycle. It doesn't mean I really think motorcycles can fly.
Right.
Don't freak out.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel bad for Dudley more than anything, really.
Because he doesn't even know that he needs to get out.
Right.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for him, I think.
Very unfortunate.
All right, so since I did the summary, I didn't have a whole lot of notes. What did you come up with?
Oh, here we go. Okay.
We wind up this.
All right, so I got a lot of Dursleys because this chapter really was Dursley-filled. You can't not hate the Dursleys during a chapter where it's all about hating the Dursleys.
It was basically 60% exposition about the previous book and 40% the Dursleys are still awful.
Right, which I think that was the point. Like, here, all this amazing stuff happened, and here we are.
And here's mundanity. Here's just terrible.
Right.
Worse than mundanity.
Celebrated.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So I'm going to start with the vacation home in Majorca.
Again.
Right. I love that it's Majorca. What's so First of all, what's so nice about Majorca? And do I need to go there? And if so, who's going to fund my trip?
Well, maybe our listeners can send us both on a trip.
Okay. All right. So let us know what is in Majorca so that we can do a research trip.
Yeah, we will research it and we'll podcast from there. We'll do a live stream. How's that?
That sounds great.
So that's our promise.
A crowd fund.
We'll go and do a live stream and tell you what's great about it. That Yvonne and the Dursleys all want to go.
If it's paid for. Okay, so anyway, the Dursleys would like to purchase a vacation home in Majorca based off of the potential sale of drills to the elusive Mr. Mason.
Right.
Harry has a line where he says he thinks that the Dursleys won't like him any better in Majorca.
Right. I think that's a funny one, too.
Which is really funny. But here's what I've always wondered, and not just, as I'm sitting here trying to analyze it, every time I've read it, I've thought, Harry, why do you assume you're going to get to go?
Yeah, you have
you're
no
not
reason
going
to think
to
you get
Majorca.
to go. You'll be with Mrs. Fig for a week or whatever.
Right, you don't get to vacation, or they're going to do it over Christmas when you don't come home from your, school for loonies or whatever that they think it is. I think that's really funny. Of course, they're not going to like you there. They're not going to like you so much you don't get to be there at all.
Right. Yeah. Come on, Harry. You know him better than that.
Right. Good job. So my next thought, let's go on to Dudley, who I do feel very bad for Dudley. I feel like he's not a very nice guy. I'm not saying that he doesn't bring a lot of it on himself, but I'm very concerned about his weight. Mm-hmm. His pants don't fit. His walk is described as a waddle. Petunia seems to think the school isn't feeding him enough. And that alone just baffles me, how she thinks he's not eating enough and he doesn't fit into his clothes and waddles,
Right, yeah.
Is he truly a large kid, or is he being overfed by his mother?
It sounds like she's pretty much force-feeding him. Well,
maybe
he's eating he grew up doing that.
And he's annoyed
and
better.
so now that's normal.
Right.
Again, not really his fault. He just doesn't know better.
Right. And what is she compensating for? What is she doing. I know we've talked about this, where it's like maybe she's giving to Dudley to prove that she doesn't have to give to Harry. I don't know, but it's rough.
There's a lot of things going on in that woman's head that I don't think we really want to explore too much.
Or I want to so much, and there's just not enough information out there for it.
Yeah.
Right. Petunia. Back to Petunia. She attempts to hit Harry with a frying pan. Okay, really? Like, a frying pan. Not even like a spoon or some sort of light aluminum. No, I'm picturing a big cast iron frying pan.
Right.
I've seen Tangled frying pans. Who knew, right? Like, they're very dangerous objects.
Yeah, it's almost like a gimmick of, like, that's the thing in the kitchen that you get to protect yourself, like, as a weapon.
I've watched enough Looney Tune cartoons.
I was going to say, like Bugs Bunny.
Yes.
Like, how many times, or Wile E. Coyote gets nailed in the head with a frying pan.
Man, every time. Okay, Harry has got to be in a better living environment.
Yeah.
No wonder when he's at school, he has a hard time listening to adults or trusting others. Mm-hmm. Of course he's going to get involved when he sees something going wrong with Snape, or what he thought was Snape in the last book. He's never had anyone else that he can rely on because he's going to get hit in the head with a frying pan.
Right.
I'm just ranting. I'm ranting about this poor child and his absolutely terrible upbringing. Harry's chore list. Let's go there. Harry's chore list. Okay, so I get that you're mad at him and you want to give him random things to do. And I get that you have company coming and so you need things done. I'm with you. Okay? You're going to pick on Harry. Totally get that. Sure, you want the windows washed. Yes. But do you really think that the chores of painting a bench and putting manure in the garden are the best choice of chores on a day you have company coming? You don't want the company to smell those things. Those are not company as coming to my house chores.
Right. Yeah, that paint smell's going to be there a while, I would think.
Or the manure?
Yeah, I mean...
That is not the vibe you want to give off when people walk up your street.
That's work you need to get done a week before.
Yes. I'm not saying that it's not good punishment chores. Not that Harry deserves it.
It's
but
more the timing. It's like, come on, for someone who's so focused and so probably well-versed in, putting on airs for other people.
Right.
Like she should know better.
She should know better. I'm disappointed.
Save that lesson for tomorrow. Like if that's what you're doing, do it tomorrow after the drill sale. Come on.
And in the meanwhile,
while you guys
have
are
him
in
clean
Majorca,
the baseboards or something, right?
Right.
So there's roasted pork in the oven, pudding with candied violets for dessert, and Harry gets 2 slices of bread and a lump of cheese for dinner. It's official, folks. The Dursleys are back at their neglecting Harry worst. Ugh. Yeah. They're driving me crazy. I'm really ready to be done with them. And it's the first chapter.
Yeah, chapter 1 really hits it pretty hard, on the head chapter 1 of book 1, you kind of hated him already.
Right.
The next couple chapters didn't help.
No.
This chapter is bringing all of that feeling right back to a screeching halt.
Well, and what's interesting is, this book was released fairly shortly.
It was, almost just a year.
Right, which usually with children's books, that's very typical. But in the grand scheme of how the Harry Potter series was released, that was fairly quick. And more people came to it over time. So I just wonder how strong she felt she needed to be to really drive home that Muggle world versus magical world feeling to pull us back in.
Right.
Or if it's just, we just hate them.
I think it's just hating them, because I don't think too many people really needed that much of a reminder.
Right.
Well, I don't know. Let's think about that a little bit, because the first time we really spent time with them, Harry, kind of like Dudley now, didn't know any better. I mean, he knew it was bad.
Right.
But we also didn't see, he had not seen anything better in his entire life. So it seems worse now that he has lived somewhere else that's better for him, and it wasn't just Harry as an unreliable narrator in book 1 because he didn't know better. So now he has some frame of reference to compare it to, and it's still just terrible.
In fact, it's probably even worse.
It sounds like it's, I don't know. I mean, there were there were plenty of really, really bad things.
And maybe we just are getting more
I think
details.
we're just getting more details about it. So I think with Harry's frame of reference change, it's more of just solidifying, it's always been this bad, and it really is terrible.
He's noticing
it's less reminding you, more giving you depth.
Got it. So Harry's having nightmares again, I see.
Yeah.
I find that's it was something that happened often in book 1. She's starting off with it again right away in book 2, and this time the nightmare was about his encounter with Voldemort by the mirror. I think it's a really good use of a nightmare, so that JK can show us just how traumatic that event was for him. It wasn't just once upon a time I battled Voldemort. This was a really big event in my life.
Yeah.
It was really hard, and it was only a month ago. Like, it was very recently. I'm still trying to deal with it. I'm stuck with these people. I'm not talking to any of my friends, and I'm having a hard time coping.
So, I agree.
Or at least my psyche is having a hard time.
Right, I agree with that. My return question is, so he clearly is having a hard time with, I faced Voldemort again, and it was scary,
Right.
It's bothering me, and I miss my friends. And in book 1, say the dream that he had after the beginning of the year feast with Snape wearing Quirrell's turban,
right.
and there's it sounded like a Voldemort laugh, and
right.
It was all very magical world based stuff, along with the magic, the flying motorcycle dream.
Right.
My point that I'm getting to is, why does he never have traumatic dreams about the Dursleys when they've tormented him his entire life? Like, how is it that never really sinks in? And he doesn't sit there and think about it ever.
No.
He doesn't view it the way that we are clearly seeing it, but maybe that's also just, that's normal. That's just how I grew up. That's what the Dursleys are.
Right.
And so it doesn't traumatize him. It just is life with the Dursleys. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, and maybe he is, and it's just not plot important.
Sure.
So we're not seeing it as much. Or it could be that for him, that's secondary to that magical world, which even... I mean, think about it. He was 1 when his parents died, but he was 1. He may not remember it, but
to him, that is the real world.
Right. That's
even though he didn't know it.
Right. He was grounded in that, and so that's where his brain kept going back to, because that's what he knew. And think about a lot of the things that he's dreaming about. It's really hard to justify that as a Muggle, and yet he was raised as a Muggle. So especially when he was younger. And even that first night at Hogwarts, like with the talking turban and the laugh, these are all things that his brain, as a Muggle brain almost, growing up with all of those things, might have a hard time sort of processing. And dreams help you process things that you have experienced.
Right. Yeah. No, I just thought it was interesting.
Maybe he just shuts down the Dursley stuff because it's not that important to him.
Yeah, I mean, they're not worth thinking about.
No. All right, so my last comment. Is anyone else concerned about the eyes in the bushes? Anyone?
Pretty odd.
Eyes in the bushes. And I realize that you're not necessarily going to go to Vernon and be like, excuse me, I need some help. There are some creepy eyes in your hedges.
Yeah, you got something living in there.
Right. But what do you do?
But then they disappear.
They do. Creepy eyes in the bushes. All right, Luke, let's go on to your 5 burning questions.
All right, 5 burning questions. Question 1. How do you feel about the amount of blatant exposition of the previous book in Chapter 1?
Oh, there is a whole lot of recapping going on.
There's
here.
a lot. And it's not even like disguised. It's saying, hey, Harry remembered these things, and these are the things that he misses. And I had a dream about fighting Voldemort, and this is exactly what happened. And things are fun, and here are all my friends, and here's some more of my friends, and here's the teacher that I hate, and here are the classes that I liked.
And if I had read the first book 3 years ago and was just picking this up, or had waited, that was really helpful. Right, especially if I'm 12 and reading it, because
but even on the initial release, it was less than a year later.
I know.
And I don't know. It just really knocks it over the head, I think.
Really bad. Yep.
So it bothered me a little bit.
Oh, it bothered me too.
It may be worse now than it did when I was 10 reading this book or whatever. Maybe I didn't care as much then because I was just excited to be reading more, like, whatever.
Yes. I think back, so when I was 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I read, I mean, y'all can laugh at me about this, the Babysitter's Club books and the Sweet Valley High books and Sweet Valley Twins. Like, I devoured...
Which were hundreds of books.
Right.
Total.
Like, each series had more than 100 books, and I would read them all the time, constantly. And you always skip chapter 2. Always skip chapter 2.
Chapter 2's recap chap.
It wasn't even recap. It was, here's this character, and here, especially the Babysitter's Club. It was the worst at it. You'd read the first chapter, which would set up what was going on, and then it would be chapter 2. Here's the first character. Her name is this, and she lives with her parents, and she likes to dress fashionably. Here's character 2. She lives with just her mom, and she comes from California. And I mean, it was word for word the same chapter. They just copied and pasted.
Here are all the character descriptions.
Here are all the character descriptions. Here is their family life. Here is their thing. Okay, I've read this 37 times.
Yeah.
Because I'm on book 37.
Right.
I'm good. And I get the point of doing something like that, especially for a book you're going to read, you know, as a 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grader.
Were those highly serialized?
Highly serialized books.
Okay.
Yes, like a Magic Treehouse kinds of things. They do that too. Here's the introduction to the characters. It's going to be the same, like, 4 paragraphs or whatever it is. Because it's designed so that you could pick up any book and read it.
Right.
You don't have to necessarily start at one and work your way through. You could just pick up one and get a story. And if you've never read it, you need to introduce them.
Right.
And I feel like that was her point. Like, that was her original intent, doing it this way. Like, okay, I'm writing a children's book and this is my story, and so I have to do that. And then maybe hopefully realizing as she goes on that that's not necessary all the time. But this to me feels like a standard children's series introduction chapter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's...
Until the eyes in the bushes and, you know, not being alone in his room. That's a little creepy.
Yeah. Question 2. What kind of hex would the incantation Squiggly Wiggly perform? More piggy?
I was thinking worm.
Worm?
Worm. Yep. It's the worm hex where you have to... Either you're turned into a worm or you have sort of like the leg locker curse that was put on Neville in book 1. Mm-hmm. Only this time you can actually like wiggle. Like it's just your arms and legs are stuck together, but you can like almost do like body waves so that you can move and like your body just does that. It's
okay.
Consistently wiggling while all stuck together.
Okay. That's disturbing.
Yes. I think anything called Squiggly Wiggly is disturbing in general.
Yeah, that's fair.
How about you?
I don't know. I was thinking like a squiggly pig's tail, like a wiggly. Oh. That's what I was thinking. More pig. Because then
Dudley would be more afraid of it because he'd been given a pig's tail beforehand, exactly. Which I can see. Except I'm thinking any kind of magic at all is going to freak that kid out.
Oh yeah, yeah. He started off with hocus pocus, jiggery pokery,
right? Oh, kid.
Do JK's descriptions of food make you hungry, or is that just me?
I think it's just you.
No, come on. The pudding and the roast pork. Come on, that sounded good.
No, it didn't. I mean, you know me. I'd rather just have like 2 really good loaves of bread. So you know.
Yeah.
I get more excited about her descriptions of food at Hogwarts and the magical food. A roast pork, which sounds good, but the pudding did not sound good.
I thought it sounded pretty good.
I don't know what candied violets are.
I think they're just like the like icing flowers.
Or are they actual like violets that have been like boiled and sugared? Or, like, I don't know.
That's my point. I always thought they were just like icing flowers.
I always thought they sounded weird and I didn't want them.
Okay.
So, sorry.
So, listeners, write in if you think the pudding sounded good. How much trouble could Harry possibly get in for magicking Hedwig's cage open? Not necessarily from the Dursleys.
Right, because
we know that they're not supposed.
Right.
How much trouble do you think you would get in?
I think Harry is. He doesn't want to find out.
He doesn't want. Kind of we were talking about. He's not he's having doubts on whether the whole thing was real, so he doesn't want to do anything to jeopardize being able to go back to it. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, and here's what's funny: my initial reaction, and I already have dismissed myself as wrong, so you don't have to tell me I'm wrong. My initial reaction was, well, he was only a first year; they didn't learn how to unlock doors. I'm like, oh, but Hermione taught him. Never mind, she took care of it.
Third year spell level,
right. Hermione's gotcha. No worries. I don't know. I don't think it's worth finding out. But, man, that poor bird.
Yeah, I know.
I feel bad for her.
At least he can clean her cage, I think. So, that's helpful. Do you think Harry could have an imaginary friend in his room? He wasn't alone when he got in there.
Here's the thing. If it's an imaginary friend, it's an imaginary friend he didn't know about.
Right. His loneliness is creating some weird psychological problems for him.
I don't know many 12-year-olds who get their imaginary friend at the age of 12. I would assume he would have...
Usually before that?
Oh, like 2 or 3 or 4. Like, that's that pretend play. Yeah. No. I don't know many 12-year-olds who still have their imaginary friend, but I'm not saying you couldn't. I'm just saying I don't think 12 is when they're developed.
If you've got one,
right.
Say hi to them for us.
Absolutely.
Hopefully they're listening with you.
Yes. It's all about being imaginary. However... I don't think 12 is when you start one.
He's been through a lot of traumatic stuff. I don't think he's choosing to.
Good point. All right. Which may explain the surprise.
Right.
Yes.
All right. On to our chapter superlatives. What was your favorite line in this chapter?
I know what day it is, Dudley repeated, coming right up to him. Well done, said Harry. So you finally learned the days of the week. I really like seeing Harry stand up to Dudley.
Yeah, it's
just fun.
It is fun.
And I noticed, because we talked about this early on in book 1, how we always seem to pick the sarcastic, funny comments.
Harry's are just so good.
It happens more when he's talking to the Dursleys.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't happen as... Like, I don't pick the funny lines as much when he's at Hogwarts and, you know, doing those kinds of things. But when it's Dursleys, man, the Dursley burns are awesome.
Yeah. Which, it also helps that we know how much we hate them.
Yes.
You know, it feeds into it.
I a lot of hate them.
I a lot of
hate them.
All right, my favorite line, it's pretty long, so I'm gonna read the whole thing, though. I think it's worth it.
I agree.
Excellent, Dudley, said Uncle Vernon. Then he rounded on Harry. And you? I'll be in my bedroom, making no noise and pretending I'm not there, said Harry tonelessly. Exactly, said Uncle Vernon nastily. I will lead them into the lounge, introduce you, Petunia, and pour them drinks at 8:15. I'll announce dinner, said Aunt Petunia. And Dudley, you'll say, May I take you through to the dining room, Mrs. Mason? Said Dudley, offering his fat arm to an invisible woman. My perfect little gentleman, sniffed Aunt Petunia. And you? Said Uncle Vernon viciously to Harry. I'll be in my room making no noise and pretending I'm not there. Precisely. It's just great.
Oh man, you didn't even get to the good part. The good part is, now we should aim to all get in a few compliments at dinner. Petunia, any ideas? Vernon tells me you're a wonderful golfer, Mr. Mason. Do tell me where you bought your dress, Mrs. Mason. Perfect. Dudley?
How about... We had to write an essay about our hero at school, Mr. Mason, and I wrote about you.
This was too much for both Aunt Petunia and Harry. Aunt Petunia burst into tears and hugged her son, while Harry ducked under the table so they wouldn't see him laughing.
And you, boy? Harry fought to keep his face straight as he emerged. I'll be in my room, making no noise, and pretending I'm not there, he said. Too right you will. The whole scene. It just
brilliant.
Keeps getting better and better.
This is one of those scenes that if you know somebody who has never read Harry Potter, have them read that.
Yeah.
That. It's so good.
I'll be in my bedroom, making no noise, and pretending I don't exist.
No, I'm pretending I'm not
I
there.
know, but that's what he's getting at. Just basically saying, I'm not anything.
He's staying imaginary.
That's what we're talking about, Harry.
I know.
That's,
Good job,
playing
Harry.
for the team.
Oh, man. But really, it's the moment... We had to write an essay about our hero, and I wrote about you.
Right. Someone I guarantee he's never even met him. He doesn't even know this guy.
No.
Oh.
Awful.
All right.
Ugh, everybody's favorite people to hate.
Who was your honorable mention this chapter?
Well, let me see. I have no, not Vernon. No, not Petit. No, okay, so there was only 4 characters in the whole chapter. I'm gonna have to go with the guy I don't hate, Harry.
And
Harry
for my
wins.
chapter MVP, I'm also picking Harry. This is a first on a lot of levels.
One.
First time we've never picked Harry. This is the first time we've ever picked Harry on a chapter.
Yes.
This is the first time that we are
Agreed.
both just have to pick the same person.
There is no other option.
There's no other option. Maybe
No.
the eyes in the hedge, but that doesn't really count. Or
No.
maybe his potential invisible friend. Like that, I'll give that maybe worth a shot. But
maybe Dudley for learning the days of the week. But even then,
we know he knew him, though.
I
That was
know.
the best part of that joke, is
know.
that Harry made a point in the when they were at the hut on the rock that he knew that he trusted that Dudley knew the days of the week because of the TV schedule.
that's true.
And so it's more funny that he kind of plays like, here's one of the few things that I actually kind of respect Dudley's opinion on. Not really, but I trust his judgment
like,
on.
he's going to be right about this.
And I'm doubling down on. He's just that dumb, and he's not going to figure it out.
Yep, just that dumb.
Oh.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
It's a good chapter overall. A lot of funny sarcasm, I think.
Yes.
From Harry.
Harry.
Which makes some of the painfulness a little bit better.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us again for our second season as we read Book 2 of Harry Potter. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at NotNamedPodcast. Questions can be directed at our email, thepodcastthatmustnotbenamed@gmail.com. Leave a comment on our website, thepodcastthat.com, or subscribe and rate us on iTunes. Stay tuned next week when we discuss Chapter 2.
Dobby's Warning. Stay imaginary, folks.
Thanks.